I have no comment on this matter. But basically, if you do something like this is what it says on our help page. I can't remember exactly what the syntax is, but you have something like, okay, you see what I've done here? I've created a hashtag, and our element, the thing that you embed in your page, the JavaScript, looks and reads the URL, the hashtag, and sees if this exists, and then it's going to translate accordingly. So you could have a link to your site, but with that hashtag added to direct it. That's the way. The only thing is, if you're already using hashtags, you need to check and make sure that they're not interfering with each other, right? Because maybe your site is trying to read it, and it depends. Did you say hashtag contains string, hashtag starts with string, stuff like that. So you want to be a little bit cautious with how you do that. So let's see if since I don't remember off the top of my head, let's see if and sorry, the Chrome translation is enough. Do it? Yeah, so that worked. Okay. So that's the exact syntax, and I'm happy to put that in the presentation or something like that for if you really can't access that site. But I think all of you guys can figure out a way to access the help section. I'm surprised actually. Okay.
Can you customize the translation? For example, if I translate to Arabic and I found one word not right in the translation.
So that's basically what her question was up here, was if she can fix spellings or grammar mistakes. So the answer was we'll talk about that today at 5, I believe, if anybody has the agenda with Faye Owais, our favorite Palestinian. And he'll talk about using the translator toolkit to do the custom translations. And then I had also said that showed how we could do it in translate. Okay. Pardon? No. So that's basically, we give this for free. So we say we only ask one thing, which is just acknowledge that it was us. That's all. So that's the price of free. Yeah. We're looking at ways to make it, if enough businesses want it some way, then of course we'll think about it, maybe a paid version, or maybe make it more stylish so that less of you want to get rid of it. So we're thinking about it a lot. Right? Go ahead.
Google Translate API that I pay for, €30
right.
that word. So
this one is totally free.
Yeah, I know, but the other options.
Right. So what he's mentioning is there's also what we call a raw API, where you just hit it with JavaScript, you give it a word, and you get back the translated word according to the parameters you've specified, which language you want it. And that you don't have to put in your website. There's no Google logo that comes with it, right? It's just a raw API, and you could do it for your own backend processing or something like that. Do you have any questions about that one? Or?
I was wondering whether you will explain it.
Oh no, I won't go into that one here because it's not as fancy. I mean, it's not as visual, right? So this one makes for a more easy demo, and I want to show how it's. So the API he mentions is, let's say you're a researcher, it might be useful. Whereas this one, if you're just a web developer, you don't want to bother with all the JavaScript and paying and all that kind of stuff. For just translating a website like this, it's probably just easier to throw in this widget. Because I'm trying to show you how you can in 5 minutes add this, 5 minutes add Google+, 5 minutes add Translate. So that's why, but I'm happy to talk to you about it offline. Okay, so the next thing you may have noticed is that down here I added the location of my dealership. Right? Does anybody know where that is? Yeah, okay. But that's not where we want our dealership. We want it here, right? Okay. So we got to change that, right? And also, my whole page is beautiful. It's got this gray, chic background. And then you have this and it's like yellow and red and blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't look that nice, right? It looks googly, but it doesn't match my theme, right? So we care about our style here. Okay, so if we go back to all the APIs, right? In here we have maps. Right? We have, in fact, various maps APIs. Right? So we're specifically looking at the Google Maps JavaScript API. So, and we want to customize the look and feel of this map. So I'll click on Style Maps, and here's getting started. So the first thing about these APIs is that to avoid abuse, there's an API key. So the deal with it's a little bit complicated. I was tempted to skip over it in this presentation, but just not ignore the part about the API key. But it's interesting to think about this. So you get the key, and then it's only good for your website. And basically, what happens if somebody tries to do a DOS attack, if somebody tries to request maps without any key, we say sorry, you don't have the key. If somebody provides the key, we say okay, here. But if he just hammers us and tries to take us down with that key, we say okay, this is owned by a bad guy. So that when you first get the key, you can use it on any site, but of course somebody could read your key and use it somewhere else. So what we do here, so I got the key by going here. I went to Google Maps API and I set it on. Okay, I want the key, and then I go here to API access, and it's all in the tutorial, right? And I say, you see it's even still blue from when I copied and pasted it, right? And so right now, if one of you wants to go use this key, you can. Nothing stops you. And so maybe you now do the attack. And then my site stops working, right? Because they say, look, this guy, his key, like who uses this key, he's malicious, he's evil. Okay, so now I say edit allowed refers, and I just put my sites. So unless the request is coming from one of my sites, this key is only valid for those sites. So in this case, I would add emirates.automobiles.appspot.com to the allowed refers. Okay, so that's how we sort of manage abuse. And can you guys think why we care? Like we're Google, we have these huge data centers. Why do we want to manage abuse? There's a lot of the, right, so when we talk about like data feedback, people who are doing bad stuff are also usually providing bad data back to us. And we want that good data, let's say of Arabic corrections. But if somebody's hammering the API with these bad suggestions, if they're doing 10,000 a minute, there's no way that they're correct suggestions, because how could any human provide those, right? So we don't want those. Yeah. Right. You had another suggestion for why we want to limit abuse?
Although it's allowed, you are still.
Exactly. So there's limited resources, right? And if somebody, let's say, why don't we make App Engine free? Well, I mean, there's literally a data center next to a river in Oregon, right? They put it next to a huge river, next to a dam, and the water's running through there, and they're using power from the water also to cool the data center. The data center cooling costs are more expensive than running the machines because it gets so hot in there. And it's a cold place too, it still gets too hot. And so if everybody just uses it without caring, it's sort of bad for the environment, right? It's like we have to use more and more energy. And so giving a little bit of cost, like the costs are usually not our costs, but our true costs, but just a signal. Say, okay, this is a little bit heavy on it. It's slowing things down for other users. It's using too much energy, etc. So the costs are very low, but it's more to give you a signal, because if you don't say, okay, this is costing a few bucks, then they're not going to change their behavior accordingly. So that's, and of course, at the worst case, the whole thing would crash if everybody was really abusive, right? Okay. So where were we? Here was the style. Okay. So I'm just gonna go through all I did here. In these tutorials, I'm the worst. I don't go through the beginning. I just go right to the end. And I just copy. Okay. And I'm gonna go paste it in. And so here, I pasted it in. And just this initialize function, as they said, I haven't even read it. And here you see my key. And then to the right of that, there's something called censor equals true. So, you know what the censor is?
The center of the page, you said, the year map.
No, this is censor. Censor. Sorry, I know it's really small. I mean, excuse my sloppy pronunciation.
Editable map.
Pardon?
Editable map.
Pardon?
You can navigate through the map.
Yeah, but this is what this is specifically about. It's Pardon?
Multiple devices to get moving.
So it has to do with the mobility of devices, yes?
Tells you what you're on right
Exactly. So the question is, should the Maps API adjust its results based on where the user is coming from? So let's say you have Alexandria. There's one in Egypt, but there's a few other ones named after the one in Egypt. Tripoli. There's one in Lebanon and one in Libya, right? And there's actually other ones. So then the question is, when the user types in, if you have this map stuff on your page, and the user types in Tripoli, to which one should it go? Now, Google Maps uses signals. If you're coming from .lb, then it's going to go to the Lebanon one. If you're coming from .ly, it's going to go stuff like that, right? So you want to sense his location. So the question here, you tell it whether or not to. There's other cases where you want it to be completely neutral. Let's say I have an archaeology site all about Roman ruins in, like in the Middle East and in Italy and Greece. And I just want to, everybody gets the same results, right? If they put in Petra, they get Petra. It doesn't matter where they are, even though there's a place called Petra in Italy. We only care about these sites, so I want to give them those consistent results. So then I would say censor equals false. Okay, so in this case we use censor equals true. I add the key here. So somebody else could go read my key, but since I'm going to edit the refers before you guys go do DOS attacks under my key name, I don't care. Okay, so in this case we wanted to make everything sort of gray and pink, so we chose the pink styles in the tutorial. And then here now we have it. So that's why I opened my music. Okay. So now I'm actually going to do the deploy. Hopefully I didn't accidentally edit that file or something and cause a bug, otherwise this demo was going to get more exciting than I wanted. So now I'm really uploading again. Okay, so it's successful already. I won't wait for it to finish. So, with this localhost. Okay, so here we are. Now we have our new map, which I think looks a little bit better, and it's centered on Jeddah. So if we just go back to that code again. So does anybody know what this is? Exactly. So I just went on Google and I said latitude and longitude of Jeddah, and then there was a website and it gave me these codes, right? And if I want to move it, maybe I move it a little bit. And so we have in Maps, we have an API to do both directions. So you could, in this case, I just went to Google and I found some other website that told me. But you can, there's actually JavaScript. So let's say, in this case, I'm going from latitude and longitude. I'm going from the latitude and longitude to the city. So basically, then it spits out this point in Jeddah. In the other case, you can actually go the other way too. I can ask the Google Maps API, okay, what I can give it Jeddah and then get back these numbers. Either way. So whatever makes sense in my use case. And you see the zoom level, right? So how close in do I want it? How close out do I want it to appear? So all of these options are there, documented and explained. Right? Okay. So that's what my result is. So basically now I have this site with YouTube, with the, well, I guess we added the guest book first. We have the map. We could add other options like a pin or directions, something like that. So people, okay, how to find our dealership, our car dealership from your location. And then you have the YouTube videos of some of the models that we offer in high definition. It's like, what is this? Sorry, there's a way to find out right what the resolution is. But this one I picked like 1040 videos with 1040 or something like that, and then you have the language selection and the +1 button, right? So with some styling skills, you could make this into a compelling site. So now I'm going to go back here. So right now, if I go, right, our website is just this, and then I've uploaded. This was version 3, right? I think I've made version. If I click here, yeah, we made version 3 the live version. Now I'm going to make version 5 the live version. Now that I've tested out the maps, I'm satisfied with it. So I say make default. Now it's the default. I mean, the cool thing is, I was just going to say how the cool thing is how fast the change happens. Okay, wait, so it's pretty fast, but so there's like 5 seconds there that it took. So you get an idea, but of course for the users, like they're just having it, and then they got this update. Like now it has a map, and there was never any downtime, any latency. There was no like, oh, sorry, this website is updating. There was no, the maps were there, but there was a problem, and then you had to change it again and bring it down or something like that. And so very professional quality of service. So, and one more thing about the Translate API, you may have noticed what's going on here. Right, so remember, this guy translated to Russian once. He wants his stuff in Russian. It says, duše mesto, što kulit. So they can trash through that. Okay, so, any questions? Go ahead.
I'm using Maps version 2.
Mm-hmm.
Is going to be introduced this only for version 2 or version 3?
So, the deal here is version 2 is deprecated, right? So version 3 is the latest version, and it will depend on whether you're using any version 2 specific stuff. But if you notice now in my site, if I go to where I included this maps JavaScript, I didn't specify any version. And so, nothing I use, this stuff, so what happens if I don't specify any version? It uses the latest version, right? Version 3 in this case, and he's on version 2. So, in most cases it should be fine. It depends what exactly you're doing. Of course, I'm using stuff that was not supported in version 2, but version 4 will support it, so I don't have to worry. So I just don't even bother thinking about versions. So there are very few things. I don't even know of any things that will not work in the newer one. But what I would suggest is that you just take away the version specification, try it out, and see if everything still works. And then if not, come talk to me. You already have my email because you were in Riyadh last year. So, and your son too. Yes. So yeah, that's how the versioning works. I mean, there are cases where we deprecate APIs completely. There are cases where we don't support certain features anymore, or where, let's say, the API key. When we first started, we didn't have API keys, as far as I know. And so then we realized there's a problem, then we started adding API keys. So maybe somebody had a site without a key, and then it stopped working. So there are things like that occasionally. That's the nature of APIs, right? It's a relationship. It's not like something that's frozen in time. It's a live service running on Google data centers, and you're hitting it. So you have to stay up with the news. When we deprecate something, it's usually still running like that for a year. So if you're going on vacation for a year, your life's pretty good. I don't know why you're writing JavaScript. So, any other questions? I have spell checker. There's no direct service, but I think, yeah, so let's go back to it's an interesting question. I mean, Google itself doesn't really have much spell checking in docs, right? There's no spell checking. But if we go back to the very first one, if we go to the search, custom search API, I'm trying to find, search API. So the way that I would do this, right? So since I work on Google Translate, I kind of love these kind of problems. The way that I would do this is probably by hitting a search API and saying, okay, how many results are there for this word, and how many, and if it never appears, it's probably a spelling error. If it appears only once, it's probably a spelling error. And so I haven't thought about this one exactly. And then it depends if you want it to be live or offline. So you can probably do much cooler things if you're doing an offline analysis. And if you have your own data, if you want to pull something else in, but yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a native browser spell checker. A lot of people have that. I don't know if these guys have Arabic. So the next thing I would suggest, so Google, so Google Translate has some spell checking, but you don't want to use that in your site. So let's see. Why don't you you email me about this, and I'll try to find something. Because for Arabic, I'm not probably the best. I should know, but I don't know if there's anything special like that. Arabic, go ahead. So basically, you can't have it. I guess you might be able to. Okay. So you want part of your site to be public and crawlable, and part of it to be private. Yeah, I mean, something that I'm working on is on App Engine. You can add all add all the filters that you want. You can either, so there's a users API. So right when I'm logged into these apps, the app can see what my username is, what my Gmail account is basically. So I can say, okay, allow these people specifically, allow people who have an email at ford.com, or I mean, it uses the you can use web.xml, web.inf stuff to control it. So it's totally possible. Basically, anything that you can code up, you can put there. There are a lot of sites like. Does anybody know about Google Moderator? Google Moderator allows you to ask questions and people vote on it and stuff like that. And of course, you want to make sure that every person only votes once, right? So you store their username, or like maybe inside Google we use Google Moderator. We don't want everybody outside of Google to see the questions that we're asking internally at our company meeting, right? So this is an example of an app engine which has many layers of authentication and authorization. It's totally possible. How you exactly want to do it will depend on your use case. I don't know if you have a specific one in mind already. Right. So I mean, I'll give sort of two examples, right? So in the first example, let's say in my JavaScript here, like in the initial JavaScript, I say if his username is this, continue. Else, return 404. And just like print out the 404. Okay, what's wrong with that? Anybody can read the JavaScript and see what's going on. Now, if it's just something where I don't want to inconvenience users with the new features, then that's fine. But if it's top secret, then that's not going to work, right? So, very simply, if I go to, let's say, example number 1 from App Engine, right? So I can. Here's my code, right? It's being printed out. Let's say I only want this certain few emails to be able to see the guest book and input stuff to the guest book, right? So at the guest book post, I'm just gonna not actually submit stuff if the people are not in the list, right? So right here, so I don't remember the exact syntax. Let me just go look at it here. So I have here services and users, user object. So I'll basically grab this here, get current user, and I'm going to say, here is get current user. Is this the email that I want? So I have this if statement. Now if I go back to the other code here, and then above the post here, I'll just return early if it's not the user that I want. So that's how I would do that. And that's all server side. So when they actually go to this one, when they actually go here, right, they just see whatever we printed out. They can't mess with that stuff at all. Right? It all happened on Google's data center, and then Google sent them this HTML. So according to the user. So does that make sense? I think it's relatively simple, but you see, there's no like right answer or automatic way to do it. You just code up according to what you want to do. There are things like in the App Engine application settings. So does anybody know what Google Apps for your domain is? Yes. So Google Apps for your domain. Right now it's on. You see that I have this website at emiratesautomobiles.appspot.com. I have my emiratesautomobiles@gmail.com. But I can also buy a website, like jittercars.com or .sa, I guess might be more appropriate. And So I can buy this website, and then if I do it through name.com, it's even just one extra click, and I say, okay, now I get, it's all the stuff powered by Google, but like you have mail.jitticars.sa, all this stuff, and your users, you are the admin of that domain. And it's just like being admin of the Gmail domain, basically. So you can go add users there, et cetera, et cetera. You could put your App Engine app there, so you would have the nice URL. And then when you have that sort of App Engine app that's on one of those custom domains, there's settings here, and you say, okay, permissions, let's say, I only want these people at this domain to have access to my app, which is often the case for a business. So you have those sort of settings, but if you want very specific things, then you'll have to change it. Now the other way that I mentioned is if you do in the versions, I just put 1, 2, 3, and 4 for my own sanity, but you could put arbitrary hashes that nobody could guess, and then send that URL to your users. And so nobody else would be able to find that, depending on what sort of trial thing you would want to do. Go ahead.
Can I use App Engine to load jobs, like jobs taking hours? So
Sorry, I didn't understand.
can I use App Engine to do log jobs like taking several hours?
Yeah, so that's here about in the cron jobs and the task queues here. That's it's a very big topic, right? So I didn't get into it today. And it's also doesn't have any visual component, right? It's just data, but yeah, sorry. So this is all in data processing. And so anybody know what MapReduce is? Right, so MapReduce is how a lot of these kind of jobs that he's describing, the background jobs, runs at Google. So this will give you sort of the full tutorial on how to do that kind of thing. What kind of stuff are you thinking of? Or if you
thinking about if I need some offline processing or analysis of whatever I have.
Yeah, I mean this is ideal for that. And then maybe you also have a front end that faces users, or maybe your front end is just a console for you and other researchers to visualize the data. Either way, and I mean it can scale. And then if I go back to the dashboard and see my quota details, can where is it? Storage request. So here you can see, I mean right now I'm not doing anything, so it's at 0%. So you would kind of see how you're hitting your limit. The good news with offline stuff is that if you're hitting your limit, you just go slower. You can always do what you need to do, unless you have like a monthly requirement to crawl the whole web or something. For that, I don't recommend App Engine necessarily. Other questions?
Last question about Google App Engine.
Yeah.
Is there like a source control when we can push the source back? Can we use Git or something? Because
So for source control, what Google offers is, in code.google.com, you can put your projects, but then they're open source. So I would say SDN in general, but it's not really great. So if I go back to my versions, it's not really great for, when I upload a version here, I don't have the source of this version. Right? So source control is not done within App Engine. I take whatever I'm ready to release, the snapshot of my version tree, I'll upload that. But I would say to get started, I would just use SVN as a version.
to retrace, is there an easy way to deploy it right from the code, or I have to manually package all the code?
You'll have to take it down and I mean, the
Easy
deployment.
way to deploy it.
I mean, basically, you'll map you'll map the version control system to some directory as you always do, and then when I configured the Google App Engine launcher, right, I added the application, and I just I browse, right, in this case I browse to here, to this directory, and now I just say deploy, right? So once you set it up once, and it's not, I mean, you're just browsing, you're taking that directory and having it on your local machine somewhere, or wherever this is running, and then having this app mapped to that directory, and then hit deploy. So it's basically one step.
So you can locally control the source.
Yeah, I mean, that's outside of, I'm saying App Engine doesn't do anything special there, but it should be very easy for you. You have the source there, and you deploy it. You just are going through the wizard. Okay, this folder, put it up. But yeah, I mean, go ahead.
In Google Map API, Google render its maps. What about my maps if I have my layer want to overlay on Google?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
If I have my layer,
Yeah.
maps layer, and want to overlay on Google Maps, is it support?
And you wanted what on Google Maps?
I have, if I have an area for, and I have maps for this area, and I wanted to overlay this map, my maps on
Evaluate?
overlay.
Oh, overlay. Yeah, it's possible. Sorry, I'm not the expert on this, but I know that it's possible. So here, the next section after styling is overlays. And you have every single thing. I mean, not only can you have existing layers. Okay, yeah, I mean, that's even that should be really easy. What this even gives you the power to do is programmatically add a circle here or something like that. Maybe like your user clicks, you have something like a website for businesses that deliver pizza. And then you say, okay, please draw the area of the map where you deliver pizza to. And well, that's really complicated. So instead you say, I deliver pizza from one of these 5 cities. It's in a drop down, and within this radius, like 50 miles from my business location. And they put in their address and how far they're willing to go, 50 miles, 25 miles, whatever. And then you say, submit, and then you're basically submitting that layer up. So they've drawn a circle around this point, and you can do that kind of programmatic stuff here too. So creating new layers dynamically, and existing layers that you have as well.
Am I able to choose a specific table to access my domain or application and correlate this with Google Documents, for example, to get this with my?
So if you already have a domain where you have, with Google Apps for your domain on it.
No, not.
I see. Yeah, so you can go do that. What you want to look at is Google Apps for your domain, and you want App Engine to run your App Engine app to run on that domain too, right?
Am I able, for example, to just specify the access for this table?
Yes. So you would have to put in something like their email ends with this, or else, like I showed in the other example. In this case, in his case, it was I only want these emails to be able to access it. But in your case, you're saying you have the domain x.com, and you only want people whose email ends in x.com to access your app. Do I understand correctly?
And no way to generate usernames.
Oh, okay. So for that, you would want to go to, if you want to generate usernames, then you would want to go to use Google Apps for your domain, and it will create a Google account for every single user.
Separate than their own Google account?
Yeah. So that's called Google Apps for your domain, and you would be the domain administrator. You could make somebody else a co-administrator and add the rights and so on, and You could also do things like share Google Docs only within that domain, YouTube videos, etc. So that, yeah, that's Google Apps for your domain. And I don't know if we have to talk about that here. I can look at the agenda and see. Or there's definitely people here who are experts in this. So if you want to talk to them, find them for you.
Can we use the app engine to work in a team in the way that I make sure I'm not affecting the others' work?
Right, so basically what you would want to do here, when I'm an admin, I create, I'm going to go to application settings to permissions, and I'm going to invite other people to collaborate with me. And then you can do it, I do this with my teammates. Either I say, if version 5 is the live version, I promise that when I upload a version, I'm going to put 6 on it so that it increments like this. Or the other way to do it is maybe he does, what's your name?
Right.
Right, so you do your name, that app's, as the version of the app. So I always put dev, and then like maybe somebody else, he puts Mike, or it's actually Chao Tian, this Chinese guy, right? He puts his name on the app, and then, so I'm never going to put his name as my version, so then we won't clash. And then we decide, okay, this one is the right one. So for development, you just kind of try to avoid the other guy. Then for having like a release process, we would want to have a version control system, which App Engine doesn't handle that, but like we were talking about before, either Subversion or Git, VIT, to handle the source tree and conflict resolution. Let's say you edit the file one way, he edits it another way. He submits first, then you need to be notified of that so you don't overwrite his changes.
Can we merge 2 versions together?
Yeah, all of those version control systems offer version merging.
Can you use these APIs individually on other platforms? Like, let's say I'm hunting a Java.
Oh yeah, you don't need to use App Engine to use all the APIs that I mentioned. I just use App Engine because I actually find it easiest. That's what I know. So you could have your own server and you can use the Maps API, YouTube API, Google Plus API. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Say I'm developing for Android, can I still use this API?
Yeah.
Regardless of the app engine.
Exactly.
What if I use them and moderate them through the app engine? Can I do that?
You don't need to moderate them through the App Engine. They have their own panel here. Yeah, but this is actually in code.google.com console, not in the App Engine console, where I say like, where I turn on the key for these ones. So that's all code.google.com. I just really use App Engine to get like some HTML up where I could plug in these other APIs. But I could have done it on the local host, like I did. I could do it on Microsoft, could put the +1 button on their website. Okay, so it's time right now. I don't want to keep you over. You're welcome to come talk for a little bit. Of course, get lunch. Thank you very much for your patience. And I hope to see you. We'll continue here after lunch.